Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, whenever this is being shown. But this is a special report that I have prepared for you in regard to what is the status and the current information regarding the Beverly Airport and the Beverly Airport Commission. I have a presentation that I'd like to make to you at the end of this, clip of this presentation. I will have a clip that really summarizes what's really happening at the Beverly Airport itself. Today, we have two Danvers residents as commissioners to the Airport Commission that have been negotiated back in 1997, I believe, and we have continued with that effort. Today we have Aaron Henry, who is the current appointed airport commissioner from the town of Danvers. Town, I guess. And William Kosawan, who is a lifelong resident of Danvers, and he has participated as the airport commissioner recently within the last 3-4 months. So we do have our two commissioners, and currently Beverly has 5. And as you'll see at the end, our ratio to the square footage or acreage of the airport is not exactly 5-2. It is like 5-3, it should be. So we will get to that later on. But what I wanted to bring back to you is a report in regard to what happened at the February 12th meeting of the Airport Commissioners, Beverly Airport. I have an outline that I prepared, and what I wanted to do is they do have an opportunity for the public to speak. Joe Rinaldi and I were the only, Tony Betancourt, Joe Rinaldi, and I were the 3 speakers on public comments. The public comments consisted mainly of my dissertation of what has transpired at the Beverly Airport over the last 4 years. The commission has been disappointing to the residents in all the adjoining communities. The attitude and response to the issues raised at the past meetings during the last 3 years has been deaf to resident concerns. They listen, they file it in a round file, and put it away for consideration again next month. Current situation appeared to be changing slowly, but more receptive, but still no decisive action. We shall wait and see how these issues get resolved and how the residents will be represented. Now, I make this statement because the current Airport Commission, the Beverly Airport Commission, appointed by the Beverly City Council and the mayor, and referenced back to the city and the town of Danvers, they have 7 representatives at this time. All the members, except for Aaron Henry, have not been there for the last 6 months is basically the longest that all of them have been on the board. So basically we have a brand new board. Some of the most urgent issues were over the last 3 years and are The commission leadership response to the noise has turned out and continues to be excessive in exercise in placating of the resident voices in all affected communities. Danvers, Wenham, and Beverly do not have any concrete noise abatement or controls in effect. And I will get to the noise abatement policy, and we'll get to that in a few moments. The previous airport manager in 2018, when she was appointed, was more interested in building an empire and self-promotion. Concerned residents were ignored during and after the proposed master plan was filed. It appears that the current airport manager and the newly appointed airport commission have embarked on a revised path, but still must expedite the resolution to the many problems that were identified with the coexistence of the airport and the surrounding communities. The master plan initiated many community concerns regarding noise and the size of the aircraft being used or planned to be permitted at the airport. The lengthening of the runway drove those concerns. To date, there has no proposal to remedy the current status of the master plan or the expansion of the airport situation. There are no plans to remedy the situation at all. The one prominent issue about the length of the runways is the grant funding application, which, to our knowledge, has been filed and pending, need to stop the expansion of the airport. You'll hear more information on that a little later. The noise is an issue that residents presented as a major concern when unaddressed and without real solutions from the commission. Danvers residents went so far as to raise this to the Danvers Board of Selectmen with no response from the Select Board or the Commission. The Select Board would rather sit on it and let the activities begin of demanding that the Airport Commission do something about this. The good neighbor noise policy has been languishing without action by this commission. When will this commission listen to the affected residents of Danvers, Wenham, and even of Beverly? They're not responding to Beverly concerns either. Draft resolutions presented are absurd, no reflection to reality. Need Danvers neighbors to demonstrate the need for a reliable noise abatement policy. Danvers Airport commissioners are delinquent in any resolution of a plan that worked for years and now abandoned. And I have called for the resignation of our senior commissioners, which consisted of 4 Beverly commissioners and 2 airport commissioners that were appointed for Danvers. Our senior commissioners should have been or be recalled and or resigned because they do not have the time or diligence to serve in a position. When will Danvers have a voice on the Beverly Commission? Attendance is an issue. We have a new board. Why not address these issues? I bring this point up because even as late as last Tuesday, our Board of Selectmen and the town manager, in their wisdom, have in effect reappointed our commissioner that was delinquent in performing his functions. And I'm speaking of Aaron Henry, and I admire Aaron Henry for his position as a director and everything else, but he does not have the time to devote to the issues that are related to the Danvers residents. Aaron Henry is not a Danvers resident, as I know of a lifetime airport resident. Our commissioners try to work with the neighbors to address the noise issues over Danvers, but he, as many of the BVY board, they resigned. A message to the commission: they were not even considered in this important voice they provided. And I'm talking about the neighbors that have participated in identifying and resolving some of the issues in regard to the flight paths that happen over the Danvers High School, the Thorpe School. The neighborhoods have been inundated with noise, and nothing has been done after the neighbors have participated in this. And even these neighbors are not even acknowledged that they have done this work, except for one commissioner who immediately resigned after the fact. Many other issues have been brought to the commission without resolution, such as environmental impact study. There is a need for an all-inclusive environmental impact study due to the health, safety, and quality of life of our residents. Leaded fuel meetings held without direction. Joe Rinaldi has identified and participated in meetings with our legislators, and nothing has been done. They listen, they admit that there's a problem, but they have not done anything, even our own legislators to the state of Massachusetts. The federal FAA agency basically has ignored us all along because our representative has not pushed the issues. And all they ever talk about is the quiet skies motivation that they have provided, and these are issues that will never come to fruition. Air emissions is another one, and that's the one leading to the leaded fuel. Jet noise emissions. Currently, there are proposals for 2 hangars to store jets at the west end of the airport, which is next to and adjacent to our neighbors at Old Burleigh Street and Burleigh Street. Jet noise emissions. Groundwater contaminants. PFAS contaminants already are present in the Danvers water wells, already shut down. This is a well that has been identified with excessive PFAS contaminants on Route 114, almost adjacent to Middleton. The size of the jets and their own noise that have already increased dramatically have been identified, but nothing has been done. The primary objective of this board, or the Airport Commission, is business expansion and leasing of the currently owned airport land. We are building a jet port or a support to Logan. Now that has been mentioned, but it's not in effect as far as we're concerned. The recent letter by the FAA disclosed that the legitimate business of leasing property and collecting payments is a concern for the FAA. The public is also concerned about the business practices and the proper procedures for the use of the land. No public disclosure as to what the response will be by the city of Beverly. We understand that there has been a response, but nothing has been done publicly. Current process of leasing the west side of the Danvers property for the purpose of building, expanding the jet storage hangars. Use of the properties is a future problem to the quality of life to the Danvers residents along the west side of the airport and along Old Burley Street. Now, the reason for the concern is not that the hangars are going to be built along the wetlands of the west side of the airport on Danvers property, but because those hangars will house jets, heavier, longer distance, and the fuel depot is right next to it. We're waiting for an accident to happen. The jets rev up when they leave the hangars, and they should not be permitted to be built on the west side. They should be built on the east side where Beverly and the airport road meet. There are possibilities of building them on that end. At recent Conservation Commission application, the residents finally appeared at this meeting and pleaded the drainage issues they encounter at every rainstorm. The issue is that the current and now future development of the airport has been instrumental in flooding area yards and foundations. These residents do not need any more development or flooding in Danvers. Why is the fuel depot on the Danvers side? Why are the fuel and landing fees so low? Would it be wise to determine the proper fees and taxes being charged by the regional airports? Pricing may determine traffic load. The one thing that attracts air traffic to Beverly Airport is the low prices for fuel, tie downs, and access to landing fees. Why are the taxes collected on the fuel not disclosed, and who reaps the benefits? Recently, it has been identified that there was legislation filed back in the 90s, and the taxes should have been collected right along, but were ignored and determined not to be applicable to our field. Well, Beverly finally woke up, and the airport commission is collecting the taxes. I think it's like 14 cents a gallon. What are the assessments for each community of real estate taxes? Where is Danvers' share? Real estate taxes for the Danvers portion of this airport are now negotiated and forgiven. These taxes must be collected, and the benefits of Danvers due to the impact of our quality of life and all the issues identified above. Pay the taxes owed to Danvers. Danvers, Wenham, and Beverly deserve a better quality of life without the noise, pollution, and the bureaucracy not responding to the concerns of the airport. Final statement, and this is what I read to the Airport Commission. Yes, this commission is fresh and new, but it needs to be proactive in addressing these issues in a timely manner. Time has expired. We have been waiting long enough. It is time for action and not a word salad without meat. The agenda for the meeting is somewhat representative of our concerns. So let's make it happen by resolving all the environmental issues. And I'm referring to the agenda of this particular meeting. All concerns and master plan issues lead to the environmental impact study. Report EPA report will address air, water, soils, wetlands, conservation, lead poisoning, and noise, and the overall quality of life. I've been calling for a environmental impact study for this airport for the last 3 years. And the legislative body of our representatives and senators have basically ignored that request because they know that it's going to affect the number and the location of the runways by impacting the residential areas that we are in. So that is a presentation that I made, and Joe Rinaldi followed up with his concerns regarding the leaded fuel. And what we're being told is that the leaded fuel is not going to get resolved until 2030. Why not now? It's already available, but we are resistant in complying with the no lead fuel. We have been using no lead fuel in automobiles for the last 25 years. Why not apply that to the airport? So, public comments were done. Presentation of flight level aviation was made by by Peter Eichlick from Flight Level Aviation, who operates the air operations on the west side of the airport, which includes 2 maintenance hangars and the fuel tank and fuel depot location. Now, new hangars are still being planned. They have gone to the Conservation Commission, and people have spoken against them because those hangars will have an impact on noise, emissions, and blight to the neighborhood on the west side of the airport. Now, the second item that was being discussed is the neighborhood complaints. After the airport solutions group made a presentation in regard to the fence project that was being considered and funded back 3 years ago. 3 years ago, they went to the Conservation Commission, got approval to impact the conservation land, the wetlands, and they have not been able to do anything because there's no funding. The funding supposedly is being provided this time by the Massachusetts Department of Transportation, or Aviation as well. However, that project has been sitting, and the permit that they obtained has expired. So now we have to go through another Conservation Commission permit. Airport Solutions Group also provided an update of the fence project, but now they're relying on state funding instead of federal funding like they were planning. Now, that is an issue in regards to the impact to the conservation and wetlands, but it's also an impact to the animal infestation that has been happening at the airfield. One of these days, they may have an accident with a plane and a deer. So they have to do some work and get that resolved. An airport management report was provided by Mr. Helfand, and one of the items that was brought up was noise complaints. And he made a commitment, he's the airport manager, he made a commitment to the public at the last meeting and reported this time that there were 7 incidents that were reported to the airport, and he addressed the 7 different issues that have transpired in regard to the noise complaints. Now, those are supposedly immediately addressed, but it takes time. So we need to get a system that's responsive and has some kind of teeth to reprimand or address the noise issues from the residents. The other item that was reported, and I'm going right through the agenda of this meeting because I have very good recollection of what's going on. Airport manager made his report on noise complaints resolved in the last month. There were 7 of those. Airport presentation at Beverly Middle School. This is a good community relations issue that has been brought up by the commission, and it was presented to the middle school as a women in air navigation, air transportation, and how the airport really operates in the big picture of the country. Now, this was done by an airport commissioner, Jesse Zuberek, the tower manager, Mary, and Mr. Helfand, the manager of the airport. It was well received. There were compliments made to the team that went and did the presentation, because that was made to the middle school in Beverly, and it was over 300 students that attended this meeting that they had. I have complimented the team for doing the effort, and the effort was great, and we appreciate it. Thank you very much. And what I have done is I have introduced this method of teaching the middle school at Danvers. I have provided this information to the superintendent of schools, but you know what? Our superintendent is getting slow and slower because they're too busy fabricating a good budget so they can get more money. But we are going to pursue this matter, and hopefully we'll get this team to make a presentation to the Danvers Middle School. So that concludes that portion, and the next item that was on the agenda, and I will just respond to subcommittee reports of subcommittee reports. Noise Abatement Subcommittee. Report on feedback received at public forums and update on noise abatement program. I have a copy of what has been put together, and it's still does not necessarily represent the entire content that we used to have in our noise abatement policy program. The words are there, the map is not there, and there are references to federal and state regulations, which should be included in here because not everyone goes on the website, and you know my feeling about websites. This needs to be very clear to the pilots that use this airport. The noise abatement program is a compilation of many different views and comments that have been received by the commission. However, they still have needs constant update as issues come up. Go over some statements. The statement that I want to go over is that at the meeting, the commissioner chairman has made a commitment. Kyle Retelek has made a commitment that this policy, or program they call it, will be revised and updated as required because the noise abatement subcommittee will never be dissolved. So we're going to be looking for comments and revisions required to make this as complete as possible and as bearable to the neighbors as we can. Now, on the aeronautical study, the new business basically was acceptance of grant funds resolved for aeronautical study. Now, the aeronautical study is a consultant going over the airspace and infringement on the runways, infringement of the airfield itself, the taxiways which have been identified as needing help in combining some of these taxiways because the airfield is way too wide and too big in regard to the type of planes that they consist of. Also, the aeronautical study will also consider the addendum that has been requested in leasing additional space on the west side of the airport, approve a lease with City of Beverly for use of land in at Airport Road, and also approve a lease addendum with Flight Level Aviation. Now, that Flight Level Aviation is a company that operates the airport maintenance, airport fueling, and now they want to expand into storage of jets at the west end of the airport. That has been discussed, and basically at this meeting has been tabled because there seems to be some concern in regard to conservation and also of the location of these hangars and how these hangars will affect the neighborhoods in Danvers. So what I understand from the meeting is that this has been tabled until the conservation issue with regard to the first hangar is resolved. The hangars need more study and cannot jump. We cannot jump into an expansion of the current lease that has been approved. Now, the Airport Commission, in their wisdom, has approved a helicopter company to use the airport, and we already have issues with the news media and traffic helicopters from the 4 stations, the 3 stations that are using Beverly Airport. And every morning and every afternoon you see those helicopters come across 95, 128, and they report on traffic issues. Let them go on the other side of 95 and 128 and go to Hanscom Field. But they don't go there because the fees for landing and storage of these helicopters are much higher than they are at Beverly. We need to control what is done at the Beverly Airport. The one thing that was very interesting from the new business is the establishment of an airport innovation subcommittee. Now, I'll give credit to the airport commissioners that have come together and proposed this subcommittee, because that is something that needs to be done, because we cannot continue with the current status of how this airport operates. This airport is an impact on our residents. This airport is an impact on our tax rate, on our tax collections. And this airport is an impact on our environmental quality of life. So the one thing that we need to do is get an environmental report set up for this as soon as possible. So now, after we get this innovation, it's a great idea, but needs public input. Neighbors have to be included, at least 1 or 2 neighbors of the Danvers community must be included to make this thing work, because they are going to be impacted, whether the impact from the innovations is to reduce or increase the noise level of this community. So please just ask for input by the residents. So now I come to a 7th portion of the report, and what I like to do is introduce this as a clip that I recorded at the meeting, and this is a discussion of direction of the commission, which is by our Danvers commissioners asking, what the heck are we being appointed to, and what are we supposed to do? So maybe this is the first time in the existence that we are asking of what our mission is. We need to review the master plan, because the master plan, the public and even the commission doesn't know whether it's filed, whether it is in progress, whether it's still being commented on. The comments that were provided were never identified in public meetings or incorporated into the document. And the biggest runway, 1634, the biggest item on that master plan is the lengthening of the runway 300 feet in each direction to make it 5,601 feet long, so they can land heavier and larger jets on our field. Is this a regional airport or is this a jetport for Logan? So, if we can throw in the clip, I will wrap it up after the clip and we can just go through some of the comments. So,
being out there in the audience, and it's another experience being out there. So with that thought in mind, I'm not sure if I'm the new target or I'm sensing a seismic rise in emotions here in terms of what's happening with the master plan. But rather than going into all these comments from people, what I was going to suggest is perhaps we should have a night with the airport commission and the people of Danvers, try to get a, preempt a situation, because I've been to a number of these contentious meetings in the past, okay? And they can get kind of unhinged and nasty, all right? The last one, I think, was in April of 2019. We literally packed the high school. The auditorium was full. We had people in the other rooms that were piping in with the TVs, closed circuit TV. The people just stepping up to the mic and give comments went on well past 9:30 at night, and they were still rolling. Okay? So what I'm saying is maybe in terms of filling in that gap between what's going on here and what people are understanding, it might be a good idea to sit down with the selectmen and try to orchestrate a rational conversation with people so people understand what's going on. And I'll tell you point blank, there's a lot of people out there who are upset about extending the runways. All right, then we'll stop at that point. All I'm saying.
No, I want to say that we have been making a large effort to post now on Danvers as well as Beverly for this meeting, which is open to Danvers residents. And also Commissioner Henry had a meeting at the Senior Center, which he's done multiple times, and the turnout this most recent time has not been stellar.
I hear you.
We're definitely trying. If you have ideas as to how to reach out to more people, then we're
well, you can always throw the big chunk of meat on the hook out there to get them in here, just saying, I made a decision, we're extending the runway, what do you think about that? You will pack the junior high school again, guaranteed. And there'll be people yelling and screaming and crying on the microphone and everything else. Seriously, I've seen this. Just to give you an idea, how things were bad in the past, I recall Chairman Vitale was assaulted by a former Danvers selectman for Sparkers. I was assaulted by a Danvers selectman, Keith Moose. Okay, I was assaulted by the guy so bad that the chairman at that time appointed a Beverly police officer as my bodyguard for monthly meetings for 18 months. That's how crazy things got. I don't want to see things get crazy like that again. I'm telling you the absolute truth. Okay, so maybe I'll give it some thought. Maybe you want to give it some consideration. But I'm telling you, I'm dealing with questions, and I'm just walking around out in the open. I go to the car shows Wednesday night at the mall. I'm a wide open target there. I've had people approach me at Christmas parties. I had people approach me at a game supper I was at about a week and a half ago. So people see me and they talk. So I'm just throwing the idea out there. Let me get on to a couple of things I do want to talk about, which is back on the 31st, we had our first safety seminar. That's my real passion. My mission as a commissioner is to represent my constituents and to promote aviation safety. Aviation safety is my goal. So anyway, we held our first FAA sanctioned safety seminar, which was entitled Human Factors and Open Questions for Pilots. And that was back on the 31st. We filled the room. We had 28 attendees, and 28 people filled this room. Okay, we thought it was much more. It's not. I want to acknowledge and thank Greg Wu, who is our FAA safety team leader. He is very impressive with credentials. We're lucky to have access to him. He did all the heavy lifting on this, and by that I mean he put together the presentation, but in order to have an FAA sanctioned safety seminar, there's a lot of hoops you got to go through to get to that point. All right, so he did all that, so I want to let people know that and acknowledge it. And I particularly appreciated the title he gave to me, which is Chief Instigator. So I wear that badge with pride. We received unanimous response encouraging us to continue, which we intend to do. And the worst things I have to say is the room can only accommodate maybe 30 to 35 attendees, just plenty of paper for other meetings. These tables which probably occupy the space of 10 more seats, are so heavy that they could qualify as an Olympic event, moving them. And finally, the one learning lesson I walked away was I bought coffee, soft drinks, and donuts for 3 dozen, and gave away 1 cup of coffee, 1 soda, and 1 donut, so I had to take it all. So that's the worst I got to say. Now, let me get on to one pet subject that popped into my head. Okay, this commission, I think we're gonna get through it. I'll be fast, I promise.
Boy, the airport did take the bill.
And I think we have, what, 7? Right now, the breakdown is 2 representatives from Danvers, and I think a couple from Beverly, whatever that number is. And Gabe was nice enough to give me a breakout in terms of percentage of ownership, in terms of what community has what percentage of the airport. And Danvers has 37.38%. And if you do simple math, that times the number, I think we're qualified for 3 reps, not just 2. I'll put that idea out there. Small one.
Mayor Cahill's. That'd be Mayor Cahill.
Well, that's about it. I think, the other thing is I do have 3 simple answers for people who would ask me. I'm not sure if they're here to hear me or not. And a lot of what I had to say here matches up with what Mr. Zuberek led in with, and I think another time for that would be better. First of all, you have a question about unleaded fuel. The gentleman's gone?
He's gone.
Joe Rinaldi.
Okay, unleaded fuel, 2030. It's not going to happen until 2030. As near as I can figure out by what the AOPA says, the research part is done. Now it's the paperwork. They got to write like 1,600, what they call STC, supplemental type certificates for each type of engine that's utilized in general aviation fleet. So that's what's going to take the time. So 2030 unleaded fuel, sorry, that's the best I can do. A number of people have asked me about the business with being exempt from real estate taxes here. Please consult Massachusetts General Law, Part 1, Title 2, Chapter 7. And this is public infrastructure. Okay, it's exempt from real estate taxes. So that's not something that just came out of the air and people negotiated. That's mass law. So you got to complain about that. Take it there. And the last thing I mentioned, somebody was asking me how many accidents have there been here, either at the airport or around the airport. And I look back 60 years and there have been 62 incidents here at the airport. Not all of them bad, occasional wing deaths, that sort of thing, but there are some sad stories in here too. So for over 60 years, we've got 62 incidents. And the last thing I'll mention is that I started writing my recollections of the airport, which I thought might be a learning, helpful tool for you guys. And as I started throwing out more stories and talking with one of the previous chairmen, it started dawning on me, boy, we've gone through a lot of dust-ups with the public in the past. I mean, seriously, the town of Danvers has been trying to put this airport out of business for 60 years, and I'm not exaggerating, all right? First thing I remember was in the mid-60s, I'm a teenager, occasionally read the newspaper, and there was an article, showed a bulldozer pulled up over on the Danvers side. They were ready to start bulldozing up the runways. Okay? And that's been a recurring theme over the years. So that's why I'm mentioning about maybe a night with the people of Danvers and the selectmen or whatever, because you don't want to have, Christians being fed at the Lions type meetings, which I've seen in the past. It's ugly. It's not funny. So that's it. I was kind. I kept it close. So that's it.
Well, I'd certainly work with you. I think we should totally go to the select board for an update. We do that periodically. It's probably been a year since I've gone. I think it was a year ago in the fall, the last time I've gone, so I'm happy to work with you on that.
Yeah, thank you. That's all, folks.
All right. Anything else from commissioners?
Ladies and gentlemen, this has been a pleasure to report to you. But what I like to do at this stage is thank the Airport Commission, Kyle Retelek, and Chris Kendrick, and Bill Kosawan for giving us a detailed perception of what their mission is and why are they there. This is a airport that's not going to go away, and Bill has sometimes exaggerates things, but yeah, Danvers would like to eliminate some of that noise, but it needs to be done professionally and with peaceful coexistence because, as we all know, this airport is not going away, but we need to make it work. Danvers is willing to make it work, but the airport commission and the mayor with his henchmen in the council needs to step up and make this operational. Now, as a last minute information that I received today, as a matter of fact, is that the former airport commissioner and chairman of the commission has expressed the same views that I've had for the last 3-4 years, that the airport commission has more power than they have ever envisioned, and they should start acting like an airport commission that cares about their neighbors and not just the politicians. So thank you for listening, and I will continue reporting. And I tried doing this a little different this time because of technical difficulties. I think I forgot to push the record button on the camera. So I'll take the credit for that, but I think you need to know what has been transpiring at these meetings. So thank you for listening, and we'll see you next month with the recording of the airport, the Beverly Airport Regional Commission. Thank you.